Welcome back to Wizard Supercoach. I don't think I've ever made videos 2 days in a row, but my enthusiasm is right up, and you got to strike while the iron's hot. And if you're a parent like me, you'll know that if you get free time, you got to make the absolute most of it. So that's what I'm doing. Now, today's video is quite a bit more simple than yesterday's, and hopefully a lot shorter. It's simply defenders, what they average in a win and what they average in a loss, and then the differential. So it's probably not how I expected it to go with the results, but it is interesting. So in my experience, a lot of people think that defenders are going to score better in shit teams, and in losses, the ball's down there more, they should theoretically score more. Well, we can see that that's not actually true, just purely based on this. Which brings me to my next point. This, like everything else that I do, it's not the full picture. You can't take one thing and base it on that. So AFL is a game of a million variables. There's lots and lots of factors, like contributing factors all at once, and no one set of data or one stat or anything is going to tell you everything you need to know. So I just use this as a tool to go along with all the other ones that I use, and hopefully it can break like a deadlock. If you're trying to decide between two players or whatever, this can give one an advantage over the other. Obviously, it's all dependent as well on where we see teams finishing, how many games they're going to win, things like that in 2025. So, I guess I'll go through the players and try and explain why I think some of them score better in wins or in losses. As I said, there's many contributing factors, so I'll try and peel that back a bit. So I'll start with Matt Roberts. Now, he's obviously got the biggest differential here of any player. He obviously scores a lot better in losses. I think this is very skewed. If you remember back to halfway through last year, he'd lost his spot in the team. He started becoming the sub a lot. And then probably in that back third of the year, from memory, he scored that real plum roll off half back. He was like the distributor, and he was just racking it up. That coincided with Sydney hitting a massive form slump, and I don't think that's because of him, obviously, but it's coincidence. I think that's when he was scoring really, really well. So yeah, it's very, very inflated. I think he's still a good pick and stuff. Like, we expect Sydney are going to be up there this year. They'll win a lot of games. Just because he's averaging 83 and wins, it doesn't mean don't pick him, because again, it's very inflated. I'm sure he'll still score fine if he has that role. So Tom Doedee, if some people looking at him, if you are, it's for a cash cow, you would think, not as a keeper, obviously. He does enough here in the wins and losses to make the required money. He's priced at 48, so 256k. Now, the thing with him is, from watching the Crom for so many years, watching his career, he doesn't get involved in transition play really at all. So he's a defensive defender. He gets some intercepts and things like that, but largely once the ball is in the Crom's hands and they're clearing defense, he's not involved. He doesn't try to get involved in those handball chains and stuff like that. So I guess he's not going to do that at Brisbane. They got plenty of good halfbacks and stuff. So you probably expect more of the same with him. But even if he was scoring at like that 65 in the win average here, he's not going to score that, obviously. But let's say he goes at 70, he's probably going to make enough money at 70 to get you just enough money. So yeah, he's not the worst pick. Houston was a bit of a shock. So he's got that 16.6 differential. He scores better in losses. I can't tell you why. If any Power fans or someone in general that knows could tell me why you think that is in the comments, that'd be good, because that's a bit of a head scratcher. He is one of the more attacking defenders, so you'd expect he'd score better in wins. I can't work this one out at all. It's not really a worry, I guess, because even though I expect Collingwood to be a contender this year and they'll win a lot of games, so did Port in 2024, and he still averaged all right. So it doesn't rule him out as a pick. And then I guess as well, some have suggested he's going to have the monopoly on kick-ins at Collingwood. So could boost his score even more. So yeah, I don't think this is too much of a worry, to be honest. I mean, he's done it in top sides before, so he'll be alright. Newman, he's out for the season, done the patella tendon, so rest in peace there. Shout out to my good mate, who I think Newman is his favourite player, behind Paul Duffield, of course. So yeah, he's a bit shattered, I think. So shout out there. Worrell, I'm not going to talk about too much. I'll touch on him in an upcoming video. He is definitely a breakout contender, and that's not just the Crom bias and me talking. But he does score better in losses slightly. If you think the Crom are going to improve this year, which I do, I'm not saying they're going to be a contender or anything, but certainly should get out of the bottom 5 or wherever they finished, it could possibly affect Worrell. But probably not enough that it would be the make or break in the pick. So yeah, I won't talk about him much because I'll talk about him a lot more later on. So basically from Martin down to Blakey, I think it's largely statistically irrelevant. It's not much of a difference there, so who cares? And then we get to Short. So I wouldn't touch him at all. There's not much difference here at all between the win and loss. Now, people think that he's, Rioli's gone, Richmond's going to be shit, the ball's going to be down there. Short could be a good pick. Well, he does score better, slightly better in wins. He's never cracked the 100 average in a season in his career, as far as I know. And even when Richmond were up and about, he still couldn't do it then. So I don't think he's going to be able to do it now. This kind of backs that theory up, but I mean, look, I could be totally wrong. Everyone's right in January, but yeah, Short is just major red flags all over the shop. Jeremy McGovern, so he obviously scores that little bit better and wins. I think it's because he relies a lot on intercepts. It's slightly harder, I think, to intercept when in a loss, when the ball's coming in easier with less pressure, things like that. Tom Stewart's averages here are probably a little skewed by that midfield spike he had. Andrew McGrath, he's pretty much the opposite of Duday, that kind of player. Like, when it's exiting defence, he's involved in that a lot. So obviously, in a loss, it's going to be exiting the defence probably less. There's going to be less intercepts and things like that. So McGrath's going to get on the end of it a little bit less. Plus, he may even cop, like, I don't know why you would, but I think he may have copped a couple of forward tags. So Sinclair, not sure here. Starting to get a little bit more relevant with the differential here. So 8.2. I didn't have time to really look into that. That maybe he had the slower start last year. Maybe St Kilda started a little slower. I can't remember. But if you expect St Kilda to improve this year, then that makes him look even better as a pick. If you think that they're going to drop off or stay the same, then I guess, yeah. I wouldn't say it's a red flag or anything even close, but it's definitely not a positive there. But he's in my team. I think he's a great pick. Sheasel, so he's just unreal. Like, he does better in the wins here. We can see that. Maybe again, like Stewart, and maybe because of a bit of a midfield spike or whatever. But if North are going to improve, that helps his average improve. It's crazy to say for a guy that averaged like 118 in 24, but he could be value. Like, he could easily go over the 120 mark just based on this if North improve. So he's in my team. I think he's in most teams, actually. Rioli's now at the better team, which is strange to say given the history of the last few years, but Gold Coast are now a better team than Richmond. He obviously goes the 100 average in the wins, but if you look at, his price, he's priced at 500 because he averaged 92 last year. Picking him at that price, you want him to be a keeper. Now, if you look at the top 8 defenders from last year, you're looking at around that 110 mark for the average. So you want him to average 110. I can't see it happening, and I don't think the wins are going to help that too much. Although Richmond didn't really have, I think they only had the 2 wins last year, so it's a pretty small sample size. He could be alright, who knows, but I'm not touching him. Nas is pretty easy to to explain, he gets fed the ball. He doesn't really win too much of his own. Coleman in 23, so there's not much to go by here. He was kind of up and down. I'm totally not sold on him. I'm not even going to bother talking about him too much here. Luke Ryan, so Longmuir come out and said he wanted him to change the way he plays. I think he did that in the second half of the year. But this bastard has a way of coming out it seems at the start of every year we think, oh yeah, he can't get any better or whatever, and he just comes and blows it away. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does it again this year. He obviously, we can see here, he goes 10 points better in wins. Now, Fremantle is the popular bolter in most people's opinions for 2025. It's right there in front of you. He could be, going at that big average again. So don't be surprised. But yeah, I don't know. Whitfield, he basically gets tagged out of it in the losses because everyone knows if you can stop him, it goes a long way to defeating the Giants. Millerer, if Crom improve, that's going to help his chances, and I think they will again. He could be a decent pick. Yeah, he's 254k. He's priced at 67, which he's easily done in the 70s before. So, I think he could be alright. It's just the biggest problem with him is that medical history. He can't seem to string too many games together. But 23, he played the whole season. So I don't know. Kane Farrell, this was an interesting one. So he goes better in the wins as opposed to Houston that goes better in the losses when they're together. Unfortunately, when Houston got rubbed out at the end of last year, it would have been nice to see how Farrell went without him, but we didn't get to see it because Farrell got injured. So he didn't play either. I think he played half of one game without Houston, and that was it. So it's interesting here. Could Port... Now, I expect them to slide a little bit, not dramatically, but I think they'll win less games than they did in 24. Could that help Farrell? Is like Houston scoring there because he scores better in the losses. Is that going to translate to Farrell the same way because of maybe how Port used that role? I don't know. I feel like we kind of need to know why Houston has that large differential before you can make too much comment on Farrell. So again, let me know in the comments there what you think on that one. Rivers, he's going to get more midfield time and stuff. So, he does better in the wins. I guess you could call him a downhill skier, but it's a bit unfair without really knowing. It's quite a large differential. I predict Melbourne are probably going to be a bit better than they were last year. They got too many good players, so that could really help him. But again, at that price, if you're picking him, you'd want him to be a keeper, and he'd have to dramatically improve his average. Clark is the big one for me. He's now in my team, not purely based on this, but this was the tipping point for me. He does 15.7 better in wins. And, as I said before, Fremantle are tipped to be the bolter this year and become a contender. So that means more wins. That should drive Clark's average up. His price is about 560, I think. So that makes him instantly like a very good pick in my eyes. Sicily, I'm not going to worry about too much. It sounds like he could spend time forward, stuff like that. Mills, there's not really enough to go on. This season was a write-off for him, and 23, he played, I think, mostly in the midfield, so it's hard to get a read on him with this in recent history. Zorko, again, he's kind of like McGrath and all that. Like, if they're winning, I mean, he does fine in the losses, but if they're winning, he's going to get more ball because he's that attacking defender. Weddle has been predicted by some for a breakout. I don't see it myself. He's already at 86% TOG, which doesn't really, on average, which doesn't really help. If he's only scoring what he's scoring at that TOG, it's not like he can get really too much increased time on ground to help him increase that average. But he obviously scores a lot better in wins. So if you believe the Hawks are just going to carry on how they finished the second half of last season, then maybe that average is going to boost right up and he's not the worst pick. But again, like, you'd want him to be a keeper, I think, at that price, and there's just too many better options around at that price. Ridley's a hard one because it was quite a small sample size. Essendon didn't win many games, I think, in that they only won a couple of games in that stretch. So I think his true average is more like down in those low hundreds there rather than 125. I don't think Essendon will win as many games either as they did in 24. I think they're going to slide. They'll probably be bottom 4, bottom 5. The list just doesn't stack up. So this is where it becomes interesting. If you think they're going to slide, Ridley's probably going to be looking more at like that low 103 rather than, you know, the higher average that people are predicting. I think that's somewhat skewed. And as you can tell, like, the further out we go from the middle here, the more it gets skewed on either end. Bailey Dale, he is another one that needs to be fed. He's basically a seagull, so that explains the large differential here. I don't think that's really skewed at all. And McKercher, he is the guy that has the biggest differential for averages in wins. I still think he's a good pick. Now, North will probably win more games than they did in 24. I'm not expecting a crazy spike. They're not going to be close to finals or anything like that, you'd think, but it is going to help him, I think, if they win a few more games, just judging by this. Yeah, there's not a hell of a lot to say about him. He's probably going to be playing off the halfback with Caleb Daniel. I reckon he might spend some time on the wing. He might get to run through the midfield a little, but halfback is where we ideally want to see him. But yeah, if you pick him, you want to be, judging by this, you want to be praying that North really pick up. Because at his price, if he's averaging closer to 90, which I don't think he will because of natural improvement and stuff like that, then that's not a pick. But, you know, if he goes, you split the difference there, he's probably getting towards that 110 that you want, which is perfect. So, yeah, a bit to take out of it. And it's, as I said, it's a lot more straightforward than yesterday's video. But, yeah, hopefully you got something out of this. I know I did. And, again, it's important to note that this is not the full picture. It's just a tool to be paired with other tools, and you can't really see what's going on unless you put them all together. So keep that in mind before you click dislike and stuff, as sometimes has been happening. Hopefully you like what you saw, subscribe, like, all that stuff, because, you know, it does take a long time to put this stuff together and do the research. It's nice to feel like it's worth it. So, yeah, I'll have another video coming out within the next couple of days. Could even be tomorrow. Make it 3 in a row. Why not? But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in that one.